The Ontario Long-Term Care Association, we're the largest association of long-term care providers in Ontario, and the only association that represents the full mix of operators, private, not-for-profit, charitable, and municipal homes. So we represent about 70% of 70% of Ontario's 630 long-term care homes. So our mission is we strive to lead the sector in innovation, quality, and service for our members by building excellence in long-term care through leadership, analysis, advocacy, and member services with a solution-oriented approach. So OLTCA and culture change. The long-term care sector is a complex, dynamic system that is influenced by multiple stakeholders at multiple levels, making the implementation of new practices challenging. And to be effective, culture change really needs to target all levels, individual, organizational, system, and political in an integrated way. OLTCA focuses our initiatives on influencing and changing policy, funding, and structures at a system level to support homes and ensuring that they have the resources to provide the quality, person-centered care. So this presentation is really going to focus on culture change at the system level. First, a little bit of our environment. Our residents' needs are changing. Our environment needs to adapt to support seniors that are older, frailer, and have more complex needs than in previous years. For example, today 62% of our residents in Ontario suffer from dementia. Good news is homes are performing really well in caring for our more complex and frail population. However, there are still system-level changes that are needed. So homes have the resources to provide optimal care across all communities in Ontario. OLTCA is currently working on 4 priority areas to support homes so that they can provide the person-centered quality care to residents. So our first priority is making long-term care homes safer and more modern. Nearly half of Ontario's long-term care homes were built to design standards back into 1973. These include 4-bed wards, shared washrooms, and dining in common areas that weren't built to accommodate wheelchairs and walkers. These designs cause a lack of privacy, choice, and difficulty for residents to maintain functioning and independence, as they need to rely on staff to position wheelchairs or walkers in these tight corridors and spaces. Who here would prefer to have a private room or a semi-private room over a 4-bed room ward when you're aged? Raise your hand. Anybody? Anybody want a 4-bed room? No? Okay, I didn't think so. So it's one of these design things that we need to actually change at an environmental level and a system design. One example is Robert, who's a 74-year-old resident. He's lived alone for most of his adult life and prefers a quiet environment. He's being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and dementia. He's aggressive to other residents and staff, and his 4-bed room ward lacks privacy. The proximity to the nursing station keeps him awake at night, and the crowded dining room with little room for wheelchairs is affecting his eating. Robert is just one example how these out-of-date structures of our homes is really affecting his quality of life. So OLTCA is working with the government on the Capital Renewal Program so that residents and staff can live and work in an optimal environment. Having an optimal environment means residents can have more choice and maintain their independence. With an increasing number of our residents experiencing dementia, homes need more resources to provide individualized care plans that meet the needs and wants of residents who may not be able to clearly communicate. OLTCA advocates for in-home behavioral support teams to provide dedicated staff that are specially trained, that can step outside of the delivery of care, analyze triggers for behaviors, and make positive change and impact our residents. In-home BSO teams also have the opportunity to mentor other staff on gentle, resident-centered strategies, be champions of culture change. So we were really pleased actually that the government committed $10 million annually over the next 3 years for BSO, and we believe that these resources are going to allow homes to transform the quality and make positive impacts for our residents. So seniors across Ontario who are aging at home will eventually seek care in their communities. And many communities are served by small, long-term care homes with 56 beds or less. These small homes not only provide care to the community's elderly and support family caregivers, they're also important local employers. So for example, we have Martha here, who's on our slide. She's 92 years old. She's been married for 59 years and always lived in the same small Ontario town. She suffers from COPD, diabetes, and heart disease, and was well cared for at home until she developed pneumonia, which caused an admission to hospital 30 minutes away. She now needs 24-hour nursing care and would like to live in her local long-term care home to stay close to her family and husband. However, due to her complex needs, which include a feeding tube, and the high needs of other residents within the home, they are unable to care for Martha and her specialized needs. There's no access to additional funding or staff so that the home can meet the needs of Martha without jeopardizing the quality of care for residents in the rest of the home. So OLTCA believes that there are more resources required to deliver quality care in this complex environment. More funding is needed for nursing care, as well as for administrative and infrastructure support, so that small homes can continue to be sustainable and serve their communities. So the complexity and frailty of our residents continues to increase, and we need more staff to care and support these residents using person-centered approach. Due to restrictions under the Long-Term Care Homes Act, staff in homes cannot work to their full scope of practice, as permitted by their governing bodies. For example, RNs are not able to delegate certain tasks to personal support workers, tasks that are delegated in the much less regulated and less supervised home care sector. This results in RNs being unable to use their valuable skills, to benefit those residents most in need. OLTCA works in partnership with the government to address these challenges and plan for the future needs of our healthcare system. We're really pleased that the government committed 2% over the next 3 years to support care staffing and continue to advocate for some policy changes under the Long-Term Cares Act so that those delegated acts can actually, and people can work to their full scope of practice. So OLTCA really supports culture change by influencing and changing policy, funding, and structures at a system level. We want to support homes to ensure that they have the resources, the design, and the structures in place to really provide that person-centered quality care to residents. We support homes through educational and networking opportunities at our annual conferences, as well as sharing regular communications and resources for homes. For example, we recently launched Ricky's, which is a quarterly bulletin that promotes resources, articles, and tools to different members. And every year at our awards gala, we present a Resident-Centered Home of the Year award, which recognizes a home that demonstrates significant progress in creating a home-like environment, promoting relationship-centered culture, and advances the Resident Bill of Rights. This award is nominated and selected by current residents. So my top 2 recommendations to facilitate change at a system level. 1, share ideas and learning. There are so many homes out there that are doing amazing things to change culture. I encourage you to share your success stories, share your lessons learned with other homes and in the associations. Let others build on your creative and innovative and change ideas that are working so we can transfer them as a sector. My second piece is, as you move through the culture change journey, evaluate and track your impact. Feeling the results of culture change is powerful, but having the evidence and showing the change to your staff, residents, families, and government can truly make an impact on the entire sector. These can be simple tracking mechanisms like staff or resident satisfaction surveys, or use tools that are already in place like your quality improvement plans. The important thing is to understand where you're starting your journey and the key milestones along the way.
As I mentioned, I'm Marg Lambert. I'm the administrator at Upper Canada Lodge in Niagara-on-the-Lake. I am a board member at OANHSS. I am just a board member at OANHSS. My first meeting is at the end of the month. So you'll have to give me some grace if I can't answer your question for you. OANHSS is involved and very supportive of culture change initiatives in long-term care homes. These would include certainly lending a voice at the provincial table for the redevelopment of the homes that are coming up, right? Kind of how can we do that redevelopment, thinking about all the things we would like to be able to do, lots of stuff that have been talked about today. At our recent provincial conference a couple of weeks ago, the association provided an in-depth session on how dementia care is being transformed in the United Kingdom. I don't know if any of you heard about it, but it's called the butterfly effect. And certainly for our members, we're excited on what the possibilities are as we move ahead to build our new long-term care homes. And I know that some of our members are even looking at renovating their homes to make that happen. If you don't know what it's about, you can certainly Google butterfly effect in dementia care, and all the information's up there for you, and it is quite exciting. OANHSS is also very aware of the effect of the Long-Term Care Home Act and regulations. It's sometimes making it difficult to provide that social model of care that we're looking for, but it's not impossible, and we've certainly heard that today. Over the last 19 years, more than 1,200 long-term care leaders have completed an OANHSS Administrator's Leadership Program. It is the only program of its kind that is devoted specifically to leadership, development, and long-term care, and meets the legislation requirements from the ministry so that you have the 100 hours that you need to actually be an administrator. You do need a course such as that. So it does allow administrators to learn that work and things like that as they go along. And certainly some of this discussion about culture change is also part of that training. On top of that, OANHSS has provided leadership training for long-term care home administrators and managers that have really focused on changing culture. Because, you know, what is clear and is that culture is impacted from the top down. If leadership is not on board, it's not going to happen, right? So I'm not saying the leaders have to make it all happen, but the leaders have to be on board for it to actually happen. So it's a little bit of a different twist here. We are no longer directors and administrators. We are people leaders, right? In our organization of the Niagara region as a whole, that's our new titles, is people leaders. Anybody that has anybody reporting to them is a people leader. Therefore, it is important that people leaders of our organizations, that we role model what we're looking for the staff to do, right? So we need to be walking and talking the culture that we expect to see in the home, right? Very, very important. Leaders have to role model what's expected, the correct attitude, excellent work ethics is important, and meeting performance expectations. Staff need to know that their leaders are excited about coming to work if we want them to come to work and be excited about being there, right? Staff will mirror what they see. The overreaching theme of our OANHSS conference for many years has been great places to live and work. At my home, we created these 2 dream statements, which we talked about doing your dreams this morning, and we call them dream statements and not vision statements because we think staff understand dream statements a little bit more. And we wanted them to understand that we want it to be the choice for residents to live and our staff to work. We're in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Most of my staff do not live in Niagara-on-the-Lake because it's too expensive. So it has to be worth the drive to Niagara-on-the-Lake, so we have to make it so that they want to come. We also want it to be the best, and we wanted residents telling everybody that there was no other place they wanted to be, and we wanted them to feel that each and every one of them felt like they were the staff's favorite, right? So that was our goal, and that's how we kind of described what culture we wanted in our home as we went through. And what was really interesting, like when, you know, the new family comes in, and then the resident has to go to the hospital for a reason. And they're out there at the hospital with mom, and mom is being told, okay, she's ready to go back. And mom's going all excited. I'm so excited because I'm going back home. And the family at first is a little confused. Okay, I hope she doesn't mean the house we sold last month, right? So then what happens is when they figure out that, no, she's really talking about our home, the long-term care home, the families then feel great. They feel like they've made the right decision if they've had to help their family member move into a home. It's really, really important for them to do that. Honoring mothers and fathers is all about staff taking care of our residents like they would want their parents taken care of, right? We want to put it in words that staff understand, that staff can relate to, right? And this is how we did that. And certainly from our staff, a lot of them are in the sandwich generation and are dealing with these types of issues themselves personally. I know when I moved my parents into a long-term care home, of course my whole family of 7 children, well, Marg, that's your job. You're the expert, right? It was still really hard for me to do that, even though I've been working in long-term care for many, many, many years. To me, culture is about relationships with everybody involved in the home. Coaching staff on how to properly respond to resident and family requests is very important. Staff need to know the importance of supplying correct information and how to answer the question when they don't know the answer. Lots of times they make it up, which causes all kinds of problems because they don't want to look stupid, right? So you have to help them and coach them so that they can do that better, right? And we do a lot of coaching. We don't do a lot of discipline in that. The more confident your staff are in communicating positively with families and residents and managing their interactions will be reflected in a reduction of complaints, positive resident satisfaction ratings, and staff daily interactions just improve just by having that communication. My big seller, for me personally, is happy staff mean happy residents. To me, that's in a nutshell. I just attended an OANHSS session called Light 'em Up and Watch 'em Go. It talked about how our staff need to be appreciated and valued. Everyone needs to believe that they are your favorite, so the staff need to think that they're our favorites, just like the residents need to think they're the staff's favorites. It works. Everybody needs to believe that they are your favorite, and it just takes 30 seconds to light up staff. Management need to be liked to get everything you ask for. And I know this works. I was fortunate enough to open a brand new home from scratch, hiring everybody. It was very exciting. Lots of work, but it was very exciting. And when I hired my management staff, I met with the group and said, okay, we're hiring everybody else. If they've got the qualifications, we know that we can train them to do whatever we want. It's not that hard to do. I only want to hire people that look happy. Do they look pleasant? Do they have a smile on their face? And that's how we went into the thing. And so we hired these people. We did all the training. We opened it up. We hired happy people. A few snuck through. You know, they were really happy in the interview. Not quite so happy when they got to work. So we got rid of those during probation. Right? But only a few snuck through. Right? But that home was open for a year. I never had one family or resident in my office with a complaint. And the ministry came in for their compliance inspection and said, it's really unusual for a brand new home to not have complaints. Just because you're working out your processes, you're new, everything is new, we normally get lots of calls. And there were no calls for the whole year. So I know happy staff means everybody else is happy. Unfortunately, the number one way I could make my staff happy is to increase frontline staffing levels. Right? OANHSS and all of our homes recognize that our staff are run off their feet. Right? And so OANHSS has long supported the need to strengthen staff capacity to better care for Ontario's long-term care home residents. The recommendation for annual funding to achieve the provincial average of 4 hours of care per resident per day was first put forward in 2008. And you know, we still have a long way to go, 8 years later. Residents are currently receiving an average of 3.4 hours of direct care per day. Depends who's calculating. While a half-hour difference may not seem like much, the cost is not insignificant. There are 627 long-term care homes in the province, and this is an urgent need. The complexity and the level of care that residents require is higher than ever before, and it's only increasing. Research evidence clearly shows that more staffing will mean better quality care, better resident outcomes, and greater resident safety. More staff will also mean more time for care, more time to know each resident, and provide that personalized support. This can help reduce stress levels in staff by providing staff the time they need to better care for the residents and allow the time to develop those relationships that have a huge impact on the culture in your home. Now I can get to the next one. So part of that leadership thing is, how do you deal with the culture? And how do you deal with those people that maybe aren't on board for the culture, right? And so probably one of the hardest things for a manager to do is conduct those difficult and crucial conversations. Reason being, these conversations make people feel uncomfortable, right? We don't like to tell people what they're not doing great, right? Even though it's our job to do it, right? We still don't like to do that. It's uncomfortable, right? Conflict is uncomfortable. But having that difficult conversation is a critical skill for every manager or leader in the organization. We are not doing our staff any favors if we're not telling them what they're not doing. How can they improve? How can they say, oh, I didn't know, I can improve, if we're not telling them that, right? So you would be surprised how many people I've spoken to and telling them that, you know, we don't really think they're that great, who have no idea that they're not great. They think they're great because nobody's ever told them they're not. right? So it's really, really important for that. So how do you have that conversation with staff member who you don't feel that's on board? We do it at our home. I mean, stuff that comes up we deal with on a regular basis, but our performance appraisals are kind of a key process that we use to have this conversation with people. When we're doing a performance appraisal, we talk to the residents. So how do you like the care that Jane gives you? You know, does she listen to what you ask her to do? Like, does she listen to what you're asking? Does she do what you want to do? So we have that conversation with residents. We have the conversation with coworkers. So do you like working with Jane? Is she good, you know, is she a good team player? Right? So then when we bring the staff member in, we can say, you know, we've talked to your residents you provide care for, we talked to your coworkers, and you're doing great, or you're not doing so great. And we don't use the thing, we don't tell them, you know, you're not a great team player. They don't understand that. Sure, I work as a team. Connie and I work as a team all the time. So you have to make it very specific. The issue is your coworkers don't quite like working with you because you always pick the easiest residents to do. You don't get everything done that you're supposed to get done, you leave it for the next shift. So you have to be very specific when you're having those conversations about what you're doing. But one of the ones we really like to do is we say to them, why do you like coming to work? They say, oh, I love my residents, I like who I work with, all that kind of stuff is what they do. And then I go, okay, so then we say, well, you know, that's really great, but you don't look like you like coming to work. Actually, you look kind of miserable. And you look like, you know, you'd rather be anywhere else but here. And when you come in a bad mood, everybody stays out of your way. So we have that conversation, and, you know, for some of them, it's quite a shock. For others, we've had people that left that office and came back in and said, I've never heard that before, and I will become the best PSW you've ever seen. Now, that doesn't work for 100% of them, but it works for a big group of them because they didn't know. And then we say, all we want you to do to start, how you can make a change in this, is we would like you to show up to work with a smile. If you could just practice showing up with work with a smile, that would be a good starting point. So that's your tip of the day, right? You need to tell them how to do it and what to do, because every resident deserves to be greeted in the morning with a smile or greeted throughout the day with a smile. And that's how we kind of describe it to them, right? So it's really important that you're having that conversation. I can't stress enough that this is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job for the leadership team and all the staff, right? You do not want it just happening when the management's in the building, all right? It has to be, everybody needs to be on board and support the staff, and we need to support the staff in making sure they understand what we want and what we're looking for, and have them participate in that information as well. We had a family member came up to my DRC about a month ago and said, I just wanted to let you know, do you know how I measure a home? And she's like going, oh my God. He said, I measure a home by what happens on Friday evenings at 7 o'clock and Saturday nights at 7 o'clock. That's how I know if this is a good home or not. And he said, and I was super impressed with this home. I got the same responsive behavior from the staff. Everybody works as a team. Nobody says it's not my job. And my DRC had a big sigh of relief. Thank you. So we really need to understand that it has to be happening all the time. Trust is critical for a great culture. You know, families are dropping off their loved ones to us, to strangers to care for them. They don't know us, right? And they're driving away nervous wrecks, right? I'm leaving mom with a stranger. And how do we develop that trust? So this is really, from my perspective, the key. Everyone at all levels of the organization need to do what they say they are going to do and do it when they said they were going to do it. And if you can't get it done when you said you were going to do it, you need to follow up with them and give them a new date to say, you know what, this is going to take a little bit longer for me to investigate, and I will get back to you by next Friday the 13th. Right? And when you always do what you say you're going to do, it develops trust with both. It works for residents, it works for families, and it works for staff, right? So it's really critical. And we have kind of a 24-hour turnaround time on issues of at least getting back to say when they're going to get the answer. And we make sure that always happens. For staff to develop the personal relationships with residents as leaders, we need to take an interest in our staffs, right? We need to be developing personal relationships with our staff, right? We need to know what's going on with our staff's lives, weddings, children, grandchildren being born, and talking about it with them. right? So we want to have that connection with our staff. We also need to show our concern when they're dealing with a personal family crisis or a sick mom or a sick husband, right? We need to develop that relationship because we need to treat our staff with the same respect that we want them to show our residents. And that's why it's so important. Through our OANHSS online community, our homes share their experiences and what works and what doesn't. Tools and strategies that have been successful are posted for others to use. And I like to say we have a great opportunity through OANHSS to rip off and duplicate. You don't need to be reinventing the wheel, right? I just recently shared at a conference, we have a what not to say document and a what to say document if you're asked certain frequently asked questions that the staff have, right? So we're actually doing a new program right now called Heard It in the Halls. So we have a TV communication thing in the staff room, and so these posters will come up and say, you know, the family said this and the staff said this, and we don't want you to be saying this. We would prefer if you said this, because we want the families to feel that, to build that trust in our staff by getting the right answers at the right time. OANHSS understands that when it comes to culture in our long-term care homes, leadership is key. The association listens to our membership on what our education needs are to assist us to be the best leaders we can be. Ontario's long-term care homes serve an extremely vulnerable population with very complex care needs. Residents and their families are relying on the provincial government to ensure that homes have enough staff with proper training to provide the needed care and resources to create quality home-like environments. Our member homes, our municipal and not-for-profit, are doing the best they can, but care needs have gone far beyond what is currently being provided in the funding levels. The Ontario Association of Nonprofit Homes and Services for Seniors, OANHSS, believes investments by government should be focused on the following 4 priorities to move the sector much closer to where it needs to be. The staffing increase to the provincial average of 4 hours of care per day for our residents to be done over the next 2 years. Dedicated teams in every long-term care home with specialized skills for caring with residents with dementia and moderate responsive behaviors. More designated behavior units to ensure safe and proper care for residents with more severe responsive behaviors. Increased funding to ensure food quality, because we all realize that great food means happy residents and good quality of life for our residents. OANHSS will continue to focus on these priorities and to ensure our residents get what they need and deserve now and in the future. Thank you.
I just had a quick question for Michelle. For the Better Seniors Care campaign that you had for the petition, is it still open or is that petition closed?
Yes, I believe it's still open.
Is there a way of getting a copy of the petition in paper format as opposed to having to do it online and creating an email account?
Yeah, do you want to give me your card after?
Sure.
And I can give you all the detail. Give me your card and I can get Kim to get in touch with you to give you all the details on the Better Seniors Care campaign. But yes, we encourage your participation, please.
I just wanted to ask, and I know we're asking for more care hours, but I also want to ask, because with increasing dementia, with all the culture change in that, we really, really need life enrichment or activity, whatever you call the department, more hours there. I've got social work in there, I've got dietitian in there, I have very little room for life enrichment hours, and the need is increasing, so I think we need to ask for that as well. Not to even mention food service, but, you know, just go beyond the hours of care as well.
Do you want me to go first? And I think that's why we, OLTCA specifically, really looks at increasing funding across all of the envelopes so that we can actually, you know, provide activation staff, program staff, dietary needs, and that's why we were really pleased actually with the 2%. OLTCA is not as supportive in terms of the minimum hour requirement for care staffing, mainly because we feel that all residents have different needs. We want to be able to provide those different individualized approaches. So one resident may need 8 hours of care a day. One day, another resident may need 2 hours of care. So, you know, making sure that we can actually meet their needs, whether it's for quality of life purposes or care purposes.
Yeah, I think certainly there's actually a need for staffing in all departments in long-term care. Dietary, you know, what they've got to get done in the time that they've got to get done, it's just amazing. My background is actually as a dietitian and started out in food services, so I understand kind of what they go through, and certainly the recreation staff. to be able to have the staff that we need to have is critical. I think part of the challenge with setting a standard is it kind of, for the personal support worker care, it kind of sets a standard that we would hope that if they say 4 hours of care per resident per day, even though some residents might need 2 and some might need 6, that the money will come to actually get us there. And I think that's kind of, from our perspective, as a focus. If we don't set a target, then they're going to still kind of just, I mean, basically they're just giving us enough to pay for staffing, salary increases, and not anything else. And it is becoming a crisis in the sense of the complexity of the residents is just, it's growing. You know, I've noticed a difference in the last 12 months again, right, as to kind of what we're doing. So that's where we go.
Hi, so in terms of the culture change movement, we're talking a lot about really great senior administration buy-in and having a lot of ground-up approaches so that we know that residents' background, et cetera. Sometimes you can do all that, but then you have the design of environment that works against it. So we had the dietary person today talk about her dream would be to have a dining table with 12 people in the room instead of, what, 32? Or more. So we've got all this great work and it's fabulous, but we also might need to be looking at the actual physical environment in addition to the social and spiritual environment to try and make sure that it's not working against our efforts.
Yeah, and I think there may be some opportunity with that in regards to the new builds. Certainly, I know from I'm involved with 3 new rebuilds for the Niagara region that are being done, and one of the things we're looking at is right now I have home areas of 20, which are lovely. Except for staffing them is not quite so lovely because I only have 2 staff on the floor at any time, and when one goes on break we're down to 1, and then we've got a 2-person transfer. It's a little bit difficult. So if we go to the 32-bed model, which will likely be what we will do as we move forward, it will be what my hope to be for the dining room is to create a dining room of kind of 16 people on each side with the servery kind of shared between 2, so you get, you know, you're dealing with 4 tables in the group setting instead of the 8 tables or whatever. So we're looking at, there is some opportunity for a little bit of that in regards to how we can create that building from new. It is a little bit more difficult from when you've already been built. My home is a 28-year-old home, and the dining rooms, we can barely fit the residents in the dining rooms without trying to fit family members in there to eat. And we do offer that service, but they can't eat in the dining room area. They have to go somewhere else to be able to do that. So it does make it a little bit more difficult and challenging.
I completely agree, and I think that we just keep working with the ministry on those design standards and making sure that we're designing homes for the future, not for the past. And I can, you know, we have to think about this more social model of care. It's not a medical model, it's a home. So how do we make it as home-like as possible?
I like to challenge both Marg.
Oh no, Mary Lou's gonna ask a hard question, I think.
But I mean, you both have mentioned in your presentations that you really want us to share any ideas that we have, any learnings that we have, and how do we get that to you? How do we get the learnings, whether it be, you know, changing up a dining room, whether it's, work with the physician team, whatever it may be. How do we get those ideas to you?
Sure. Certainly with ONHSS, we have kind of a community board that you can post questions or ask questions and say, you know, we're having trouble with, we're looking to buy a new nurse call system. Who's got a nurse call system out there that they're really happy with, and that kind of thing. And we can post to that and post answers to people. Or, you know, we have an issue with a family where they don't want them, the doctor's ordered a pureed diet. Everybody needs that pureed diet to happen. The resident doesn't want a pureed diet. What do we do? And then other members can kind of post that information. I know certainly from our perspective, we post a lot on our website that you can search for policies and procedures that other people have created that you might want to be looking at to make changes in, so you can pull them down. We also put in tools like my What Not to Say document is up on that site. How to prepare for RQI. buy for the managers and the compliance binders when you walk in the home, those are up on those sites. So, and we kind of share those types of things as, you know, letting people know that they're there. It's a relatively new, we've probably been doing the OANHSS community probably a couple of years, and it's really starting to pick up. It has taken a while, but everybody from our organization knows that's where you go to look. And you can do a search, you know, if you were looking for something specifically, or if you feel like you have a really great idea, you just send it in and say, hey, you might want to post this up on the boards, and then people will know that they're there to be able to get them.
So we're always looking for great ideas and things that work. I think the main two pieces for us is really our newsletter. So we're always looking for good news stories. So if you have something, you can send it in, well, to myself for the communications lead. Make sure those are posted and shared on a weekly basis with the entire membership. So hopefully people are reading that. Second thing is our conferences. We are always looking for different presenters and different people to share information, do different workshops. We actually have a call coming out for our fall conference at the end of the month. So if you have something that's working well and you want to share it, would love to hear from you. So, yeah.
And I guess too, if you're an OANHSS member or if you're an OLTCA member, how do we find out about what those great things are on either side? So if I'm an OANHSS member, how do I get access to the stories that are available on OLTCA and vice versa? So obviously there's great work being done.
Well, for OLTCA, I think you should be on our newsletter, which really kind of highlights everything. If you're not, please let us know and contact us through the website. We'll make sure that we can get you on there. I think that's where we highlight most of the things that are going on and the different opportunities there.
That one I'm not sure of the answer to. I'm new. I can ask that question. I certainly know from a perspective with some of the magazines that come out that kind of show what's going on too, and you know, the long-term care home magazine and that type of thing is another great way for looking at ideas of what people have and are available out to everybody. Usually, I think they go to most homes in Ontario.
Okay, one last question, and then we're going to
Just going to add to that. I chair the local administrator DOC group in the London area, and we have an OANHSS home and an OLTCA home that brings updates from the association. So if you have groups that meet, that's really how we keep each other informed about what association is doing. So I'm sure there's those tables across the province, but if they're not doing that we use that as a forum to get it out.
Yeah, we actually, our Lynn does that in the Niagara area, the Hamilton, Halton, Brantford, Lynn, the big long one. It's got miles of names to go with it. They do bring both groups together for meetings and things as well to talk about kind of what's happening and what's going on.